was watching that.
The Winter Soldier. Many people swear it's the best MCU movie, but it's really just another MCU movie like Thor: The Dark World.
Hey, it's your boy,
Skinny penis.
I want to take a break from my Spider-Man videos and talk about some MCU movies, specifically the ones that might be considered overrated. So a fellow over on Twitter that I follow by the name of Hat Trick Films put out a tweet asking which MCU movie was the most overrated, with pictures of Spider-Man Far From Home, Avengers Endgame, Black Panther, and Thor Ragnarok. I thought this might be an interesting topic to talk about, so I took his tweet and I shared it with you guys to see what you came up with, to see which MCU movies you think are overrated. But before I get into that, I want to give a nice big shout out to Hat Trick Films. He has a channel and makes some pretty good videos. I'll recommend his video on the Suicide Squad, Batman Begins, and John Wick. I'll leave links so you can check them out. So without further ado, let's see what MCU movies you guys thought were overrated.
Dribble these cheeks, Bugs.
So the one I saw the absolute most was Black Panther. It was in just about everyone's list, and it's understandable. It was hyped to no end, because this was the first solo movie for a black superhero in the MCU. It wasn't, however, the first solo Marvel movie for a black superhero. That was Blade, which did so well that it actually saved Marvel from going under in the 90s. Just wanted to mention that because I get annoyed when I hear people claim that it's Marvel's first solo movie for a black superhero. They need to put some respect on Blade's name. But anyway, this movie was definitely overhyped, and I would agree that's very overrated. I think the movie itself is carried by three things. The world of Wakanda is pretty cool, with the science and technology they have access to, and T'Challa and Killmonger being the most interesting characters. Other than those three things, I think it's a pretty average MCU movie. I think the story was interesting, but not executed that well. And the use of vibranium is pretty out of control in this movie. It can literally do like everything. Also, some very dated, cringy, and just unfunny jokes. And the cherry on top is that the CGI looks pretty awful. But I really think what adds to it being considered overrated is the fact that it was nominated for Best Picture in 2018. And when you watch it, it makes you go, this was nominated? If they were going to nominate an MCU movie in 2018 for Best Picture, it should have been Infinity War. But I think that is one of the biggest reasons people consider it overrated. The second most I saw was Captain Marvel. But I think this is due in large part to the media hyping it up, because it was the first solo woman MCU movie, so of course that grabbed headlines. But I also feel like this one got overhyped because it came out right after Infinity War, and fans were really just on a high because of that movie. And also in Infinity War, you could see Nick Fury sent out a message to get in contact with Captain Marvel. So when many fans hid, they thought this movie was kind of necessary, but in the end, the movie ended up not mattering at all. It's just a very bland, forgettable movie, with a really boring lead and a story that's not that interesting. I consider it one of the MCU's worst films, down there with Thor: The Dark World. Like, if you haven't seen it, I promise you, you're not missing much.
What are you, fucking gay?
And then we got Endgame. Now, I'm very mixed on Endgame. There are some things that I like about it, but it's definitely not handled nearly as well as Infinity War. Some characters make some pretty dumb decisions, and they change and twist other characters to help fit the story, and I really just didn't like it. The main one being Thor. They made him overweight, out of shape, and depressed, which I don't really think it fit his character at all from the previous movie. And then with Bruce Banner and the Hulk, they basically just skipped a bunch of character development so we can have Professor Hulk here. I also feel like this movie doesn't need to be nearly 3 hours long. It's very slow and bloated in the middle. I mean, I really did enjoy the climax and the big final battle. That was great. And I actually didn't mind the fan service. But them fucking around trying to build a time machine for half the movie is just really boring. Also, the movie is a big shift in tone from the previous. Things weren't handled as seriously as they were in Infinity War. Just a lot of humor and jokes is inserted when it's not needed. I will say the final battle did feel like a nice big conclusion to the Infinity War saga. Just wasn't really a big fan of most of the movie up until that point.
Years ago, I was Chinese.
And then there's Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, I plan to talk about the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies pretty soon, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But from what I saw, a lot of people consider this one of the most overrated Spider-Man movies, and possibly one of the worst. I definitely wouldn't go that far. I think it's a pretty solid movie, and there's things I like about it, but there's more that I don't. If anything, I think the movie is more frustrating than it is bad. The biggest being, I'm not really a big fan of how Peter is portrayed here. He seems very passive, and he's actively not really engaging with the main story until he has to. He doesn't really feel like the same character we saw in the previous movies. Also, he does some genuinely pretty dumb things. Like I said, I'll cover this more in its own video. But overall, I think the movie was just okay and it was fine. But I do feel like it's overhyped just because it's Spider-Man. It's literally one of the most popular superheroes ever, and easily the most popular Marvel character. So yeah, even if it's an average movie, it's still gonna be liked by many just because it's Spider-Man.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
And that's really what the bulk of the comments were all saying. It was mainly these movies. And there were some interesting ones like The Winter Soldier, which I don't think it's overrated. I think 7 years later it's still a very good movie. And when it came out, it was a nice shake-up to the MCU, because right before this was Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World. So this felt very fresh. I also saw someone say Age of Ultron is overrated. I thought everybody was in agreement that this is the weakest Avengers movie. Hell, I did a whole video about why I don't like it. So can it be overrated if it's not that well liked in the first place? And then someone actually said Iron Man, which I actually rewatched recently. I gotta say, that movie still holds up and is great. It does get a lot lot of praise, but I think that's also due to the fact that Iron Man 2 and 3 aren't that great, so it led to people inflating how good the first one is. So maybe it's a little overrated just because of people constantly talking about how good it is. But anyway, that's gonna do it for the video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, go and drop a like on it. And leave a comment, let me know, what MCU movie do you think is overrated? I got a few more of these short little videos that I'm gonna push out soon to take a break from the bigger ones that I'm working on. So I guess you can consider these filler episodes. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about Thor Ragnarok. Overrated? I guess, probably because the first two weren't that good. And people hyped up how funny this movie is. I mean, it's funny, but it's not like hilarious. I mean, here's what I think of the movie.
2 to the 1, 1 to the 3. I like good pussy and I like good trees.
And the way this book came about is because my dad passed away about a year ago, and I had a box of what nigga, you laughing?